As the hulking starship of the Vroxian fleet emerged from the pulsing glow of hyperspace, the planet Earth hung suspended in the vastness of space, a delicate orb of blues and greens cloaked in swirling white clouds. Commander Zarth, with his imposing stature and scales that shimmered like molten silver under the command deck's harsh lights, surveyed the planet with a predatory gaze. His deep voice echoed through the bridge as he issued his orders. Initiate cloaking mechanisms and set our descent coordinates for the Sahara. Intelligence reports minimal human activity. It should be an easy foothold. Lieutenant Jarn, his trusted second-in-command, manipulated the controls with his clawed fingers, his yellow eyes reflecting a mix of excitement and wariness. Cloaking engaged. Descent path locked. We'll be in the upper atmosphere in minutes, he reported, the slight quiver in his voice betraying his nerves. Around them, the crew of the Vroxian ship buzzed with efficient haste, preparing for the invasion. Weapons were primed, armor was secured, and combat drones were activated, each step methodically ticked off with practiced precision. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was turbulent, with the ship shuddering under the unfamiliar assault of gravitational forces and a thick atmosphere. Zarth stood steadfast by the viewport, watching as the serene blue sky gave way to the sprawling emptiness of the Sahara. The desert was an expanse of endless sand and scorching sun, a stark contrast to the cold, dark void of space they had traversed. We are landing in 3, 2, 1. Jarn counted down before the ship made a thunderous impact with the sandy surface, sending clouds of dust billowing around them. Once the dust settled, the bay doors opened with a hiss, revealing the harsh, sunlit desert. Zarth stepped onto the hot sand, feeling the heat seep through the soles of his boots. He looked around, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. The heat was oppressive, the landscape alien and unforgiving. Begin establishing the base. Set up the perimeter defenses here and deploy the scouts in a 20-mile radius. We take no chances, even in this wasteland, Zarth commanded, his voice carrying over the wind that whipped around them. As the Vroxians busied themselves with their tasks, little did they know that the Earth had surprises waiting for them, defenses not just of military might, but of nature itself. The Earth was not the passive, easy target they had anticipated, and the Sahara was more than just a sea of sand. It was a crucible that would test their mettle to its limits. Unseen, just beyond the next dune, a dust-covered vehicle watched silently. Inside, a group of human soldiers observed the alien invaders, their hands steady on their weapons, ready to defend their planet. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shatter the invaders' expectations and ignite a fierce battle for survival. As the Vroxian forces worked under the harsh rays of the sun to secure their initial foothold, the tension in the air was palpable. The advanced technology of the aliens had managed to adapt the environment inside their temporary base to mimic the cooler, more arid climate of their home planet, Vrox. Yet outside the shielded perimeters, the Sahara's oppressive heat loomed like an omnipresent adversary. Lieutenant Jarn, overseeing the setup of the communication arrays, wiped the sweat from his brow with a rough swipe of his armored gauntlet. The heat interferes with our systems more than anticipated, he reported, his voice crackling over the comm link to Commander Zarth, who was coordinating the broader defensive setup. Adjust the thermal shields to compensate and keep monitoring the systems. Any failure in our tech could expose us. Zarth replied, his voice stern, eyes scanning the horizon through enhanced optical sensors. Despite the clear skies, his instincts warned of unseen dangers. Meanwhile, the group of human soldiers hidden just beyond the dune observed the aliens with a mix of awe and fear. Sergeant Ava Martinez, leader of the small reconnaissance team, watched through high-powered binoculars. Looks like they're setting up for a long stay. We can't let them establish a base here. HQ needs to know about this now, she murmured to her second-in-command, Corporal Liam Doyle. Do we engage? Liam asked, his finger hovering near the trigger of his rifle. Not yet. We need backup. I'm calling it in, Ava responded, turning to her radio. The call was brief but urgent, her words a quiet symphony of military precision and caution. Back at the Vroxian landing site, the completion of their temporary base was nearly at hand when the first sign of human resistance shattered the deceptive calm. A sudden roar split the air and a missile streaked across the sky, slamming into one of the outer barriers with a blinding explosion. Alarms blared throughout the Vroxian camp. To arms! We are under attack! Zarth bellowed, his voice booming across the field as every Vroxian soldier scrambled to respond. The commanders had expected some form of resistance, but the ferocity and coordination of the human attack caught them off guard. The humans had launched a well-coordinated assault. Armored vehicles surged over the dunes, guns blazing, while more missiles followed, each strike precise, targeting key points in the aliens' defensive setup. The Sahara echoed with the sounds of gunfire and explosions, a violent symphony that marked Earth's fierce response to the alien invaders. Zarth, leading from the front, directed his troops into battle formations. "Form defensive lines, push them back," he commanded, his own weapon discharging energy blasts that kicked up sand wherever they struck. The Vroxians' superior technology initially gave them an edge, their energy shields deflecting the incoming bullets and artillery. However, the relentless heat and sand began to wear down their equipment, causing malfunctions and energy fluctuations. Sergeant Martinez and her team used the desert to their advantage, moving swiftly and blending into the environment. "Keep them disoriented, use the dunes for cover and target their tech," she instructed her team, who moved with precision, exploiting every opportunity to hinder the alien forces. As the battle intensified, both sides suffered casualties. Zarth realized the invasion would not be as straightforward as he had assumed. The humans were tenacious and knew how to use their home terrain to their advantage. In the midst of chaos, a realization dawned on both leaders. This was merely the first skirmish in what would become a grueling battle for control of the planet. The Sahara, with its harsh conditions and vast expanse, was not just a battlefield. It was a test of survival, strategy, and resilience for both invaders and defenders. The battle waged on under the punishing sun, growing more intense with each passing hour. Commander Zarth, his armor scarred and sandblasted, watched as his Vroxian troops struggled to maintain their technological superiority in the harsh desert conditions. The relentless heat and fine sand were causing havoc with their equipment, clogging vents and overheating systems. Despite their advanced technology, the Vroxians were learning that Earth's natural environment was an adversary as formidable as the humans defending it. Lieutenant Yarn approached Zarth with a grim expression. "Commander, our thermal regulators are failing across multiple units. We are not equipped for prolonged engagement in this climate. We must consider a tactical withdrawal to recalibrate," he reported, his voice strained under the stress of combat. "No, we push forward," Zarth barked back, his pride wounded by the suggestion of retreat. He could not fathom returning to Vrox with news of defeat by a supposedly inferior species and their unforgiving planet. Meanwhile, the human forces led by Sergeant Ava Martinez adapted quickly and efficiently to the evolving battlefield. Utilizing guerrilla tactics, they harassed the alien invaders, striking swiftly and then disappearing back into the desert's vastness. Ava knew the terrain and how to use it. Every dune and every wind shift was a potential ally. "Keep them on their heels, hit and run," Ava shouted to her team as they darted between cover, avoiding the increasingly sporadic blasts from the Vroxian energy weapons. She could see the frustration and fatigue setting into the alien ranks, their movements growing sluggish, their responses delayed. Back at the Vroxian front, Zarth faced a crucial decision as another of his units reported critical failures. His gaze swept across the battlefield, noting the mounting casualties and the faltering morale of his troops. Finally, his strategic mind overcame his bruised ego. "Pull back to defensive formation, Gamma. We need to regroup and reassess our position," he commanded, signaling the retreat with a heavy heart. His voice carried the weight of unspoken defeat, echoing strangely in the suddenly quieting desert. The Vroxians slowly withdrew, their retreat covered by the last functioning defense turrets, which laid down a suppressing barrage to fend off any pursuit. The humans watched cautiously, unsure if the withdrawal was a trap or a genuine retreat. As the dust settled, Ava and her team regrouped, assessing their own losses. "We've bought some time, but they'll be back, and probably in greater numbers," she speculated, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the horizon where the alien ship loomed ominously. In the relative safety of their temporary base, Zarth convened an emergency meeting with his commanders. The air was thick with tension and the metallic scent of ionized air from the overheated machinery. "We underestimated the Earth and its defenders," Zarth admitted, his voice low. "Our initial intelligence failed to account for the extremity of this planet's climate and the resilience of its inhabitants. We must adapt or perish." Jarn nodded in agreement, relieved to see his commander accepting the reality of their situation. We might consider deploying the environment adaptation modules. If we can't withstand the desert conditions, we must make our systems impervious to them. Zarth considered this, then gave a curt nod. Make it so. Prepare for a night assault. The humans won't expect us to strike under the cover of darkness. We'll use their momentary confidence against them. The meeting ended with a renewed sense of purpose, albeit tinged with the caution born of hard-learned lessons. The night would soon fall over the Sahara, and with it, the next phase of the battle would begin. The Vroxians hoped to turn their fortunes under the cloak of darkness, unaware that the humans had their own plans, ready to exploit every mistake their alien adversaries might make. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand, the Vroxian forces regrouped within the confines of their shielded base. The air inside was cooler, a stark contrast to the desert's daytime furnace. Commander Zarth paced before his assembled commanders, each one weary yet attentive, their eyes reflecting the light of the holographic maps displayed in the center of the room. "We have adjusted our strategy," Zarth began, his voice firm despite the earlier setbacks. "Tonight we exploit the darkness, our natural advantage. Our vision capabilities surpass the humans, and we will use this to our full advantage." Lieutenant Yarn updated the tactical display, showing their positions and the likely locations of the human forces. "Sensors have been recalibrated for night operations. All units are now equipped with enhanced thermal regulators. We should see less operational degradation due to the heat." Zarth nodded, satisfied with the updates. "Deploy in silent mode until within striking range. Use the dunes as cover and strike with precision. Our goal is to incapacitate their command structure, hoping to scatter their forces and reduce their effectiveness." Meanwhile, at the human camp, Sergeant Ava Martinez was briefing her team. The day's success had bolstered their spirits, but Ava knew the night would bring new challenges. "They'll be coming," she said, her eyes scanning the faces of her team, each member marked by the dust and strain of battle. "They have the advantage in the dark, but we have our own tricks. Night vision gear on, and remember, keep communication to a minimum. Use the sandstorms as cover." The humans had prepared their defenses around their temporary command post, setting up sensor nets and tripwire alarms. Despite their technological disadvantage, their adaptability and knowledge of the terrain were their greatest assets. As night enveloped the desert, both sides ventured out once again. The Vroxians moved with renewed confidence, their forms mere shadows flitting between the dunes. The silence of the desert night was on their side, the only sounds being the soft shifts of sand underfoot and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Ava and her team were hunkered down, their eyes glued to their night vision screens. The tension was palpable. Every soldier knew the stakes of the coming battle. The first sign of the Vroxian assault was a faint disturbance detected by the human sensors. Ava's voice was a whisper in the comms. "Positions now. Let them come to us." As the Vroxians closed in, confident in their technological superiority, they were unaware of the human preparedness. The first wave of aliens was met with a barrage of gunfire from positions they had not detected, their nighttime advantage negated by the humans' meticulous preparations. Zarth, leading from the front, realized too late that they had walked into a well-laid trap. Flares shot into the sky, illuminating the battlefield with harsh, sudden light, blinding the invaders who were adapted to the dark. "Fall back," Zarth commanded, his voice a roar of frustration as his troops scrambled to regroup under the unexpected assault. The Vroxians retreated under a hail of bullets, their night assault crumbling around them. They had underestimated the human soldiers' resolve and their ability to adapt to alien tactics. Back at the human camp, Ava allowed herself a brief smile. "Keep vigilant," she cautioned her team. "They're learning, but so are we." Both sides suffered losses that night, but the battle was far from over. As dawn approached, painting the desert in hues of gold and pink, both the invaders and defenders knew that the war for the Sahara, and for Earth, was only just beginning. This was a chess game where each player was rapidly having to revise their strategies, a test not just of military might, but of adaptability and resolve. The morning light brought a tense calm to the Sahara, as both the Vroxian invaders and the human defenders regrouped after a night of intense confrontation. Commander Zarth stood among his officers, the weight of the previous night's failures heavy on his shoulders. The faces of his troops, illuminated by the rising sun, were drawn and tired, their eyes reflecting a night spent in combat rather than victorious conquest. "We need to rethink our approach," Zarth said quietly to his assembled commanders. "The humans are adept at using our own tactics against us. We must innovate." Lieutenant Yarn nodded, his analytical mind running through various scenarios. "I suggest we enhance our reconnaissance. If we understand their movements better, we can anticipate their strategies." Zarth agreed, and soon small drones were dispatched into the sky, silent watchers tasked with mapping the human defenses and movements. Meanwhile, the Vroxians fortified their position, setting up energy barriers that shimmered translucently against the desert backdrop, blending with the environment to reduce their visibility. At the human camp, Sergeant Ava Martinez reviewed the footage from the night's surveillance, noting how close they had come to a disastrous defeat. "They're going to change their strategy," she predicted, speaking to a room full of nodding heads. "We need to stay one step ahead. Let's move our main defenses. We'll set up false targets to mislead their drones." As the sun set once again over the Sahara, the stage was set for another night of maneuvers. This time, the Vroxians initiated their operation with a quieter, more calculated approach. Diversionary tactics were employed, with part of their force making overt movements to draw the humans' attention, while the main contingent moved in from a different angle. Ava, however, had anticipated this change. Utilizing the false targets and hidden sensors, she managed to gather her forces where they were most needed. "Hold your positions until my mark," she instructed her troops, her voice a calm constant in the soft desert night. The battle began with a sudden flare of light as the Vroxian forces, thinking they had gained the advantage, stumbled into a meticulously prepared ambush. Explosions lit up the night, marking the start of a fierce exchange of fire. Zarth, in the midst of the fray, quickly realized the trap. "Split forces, regroup at Sector 7, he ordered, trying to salvage the situation. His troops, disciplined and quick, adapted on the fly, pulling back from the ambush and redirecting their efforts. The skirmish continued well into the night, neither side gaining a decisive edge. The Vroxians managed to inflict some damage, but the humans' defensive maneuvers and intimate knowledge of the terrain kept them from any significant losses. As dawn approached, both sides found themselves exhausted but unyielding. Zarth met with his commanders once more, frustration evident in his posture. "We underestimated not only their military capabilities, but also their ingenuity," he conceded. "We need a new plan that does not rely solely on brute force or surprise." Back at the human base, Ava and her team, though weary, felt a surge of cautious optimism. They had held their ground against a technologically superior enemy through ingenuity and determination. "This isn't just about surviving their attacks anymore," Ava said as her team gathered around, their faces lit by the first light of dawn. "It's about showing them that Earth isn't just a battleground. It's our home. And we fight for it with everything we've got." As the sun rose, casting long shadows over the desert, both the Vroxians and humans prepared for the next phase of their conflict, knowing that each had the resolve and the resources to continue. The battle for the Sahara was proving to be a crucible, forging new strategies and tactics in the fires of war, with both sides driven by a fierce determination to prevail. As the relentless sun climbed higher in the sky, casting short shadows across the rippling sands, Commander Zarth convened a critical strategy meeting. The stalemate of the night before had been illuminating. The Vroxian commander now recognized that mere technological superiority was insufficient against a determined and innovative enemy like the humans. "We cannot continue this direct confrontation," Zarth declared to his officers. "It's clear now. Our approach must change. We will initiate talks with the humans. We need to understand their desires to find a leverage point." Lieutenant Yarn, surprised yet relieved by the change in tactics, responded, "It's a wise decision, Commander. Shall I arrange a communication channel?" "Yes, ensure it's secure and neutral. We can't afford any misunderstandings or traps," Zarth confirmed, his voice carrying a new tone of cautious diplomacy. Meanwhile, at the human base, Sergeant Ava Martinez received the unexpected message of truce from the Vroxian forces. Her initial suspicion gave way to strategic consideration. "This could be an opportunity to end this with fewer losses," she mused aloud, her team members nodding in agreement. "Let's see what they have to say, but keep our defenses ready." The designated meeting spot was a neutral area visible from both sides. a flat expanse of desert marked by a lone ancient acacia tree, its branches a testament to endurance. As Zarth and his security detail approached, the humans were already there, waiting under the scant shade. Ava stood firm as the alien commander approached, her posture relaxed yet assertive. "You wish to talk, Commander Zarth? After all this, why should we trust your intentions now?" Zarth, towering over the human, paused before answering. "Because continuing this conflict benefits neither of us. We underestimated Earth's defenses and your capability to adapt. We seek a resolution." Ava considered his words, her eyes scanning the alien's expressions, reading sincerity or deceit. "We're listening, but know this: we won't compromise our planet's safety." The negotiations were tense, with both sides laying out their terms. Zarth proposed a cessation of hostilities and a Vroxian retreat, with guarantees for Earth's sovereignty. In exchange, he requested Earth's aid in repairing their ship, damaged from the ongoing skirmishes and harsh environmental effects. Ava weighed the offer carefully. Helping them could expedite their departure, but every agreement had to ensure Earth's security first and foremost. After hours of discussion, a provisional agreement was drafted, subject to approval by higher authorities on both sides. As they parted ways, the tension that had marked the start of the meeting had eased somewhat, replaced by a cautious optimism. Both Ava and Zarth knew the challenges ahead in convincing their respective leaders and ensuring compliance. But the alternative, a prolonged and destructive conflict, was a less palatable outcome. Returning to her camp, Ava briefed her superiors. "It's a risk, but I believe they're sincere. Their commander showed signs of respect for our resilience. We might have just turned hostility into a chance for peace." Zarth's debrief with his own command was similarly introspective. "This planet is not the undefended outpost we believed. Its people are fierce, resourceful, and worthy of respect. It is time we rethink not just this mission, but our approach to other civilizations." The meeting under the acacia tree thus became a turning point in the Vroxian invasion of Earth. What had begun as a sure conquest evolved into a mutual recognition of strength and a potential for peaceful coexistence. The days following were tense with anticipation, as both sides awaited final decisions from their governments, hoping that diplomacy would succeed where warfare had not. The days following the provisional agreement were fraught with tension and guarded hope. The Vroxian starship loomed quietly in the sky, a constant reminder of the delicate peace hanging by a thread. Commander Zarth and Sergeant Ava Martinez, now the primary liaisons between the two species, prepared for the formal negotiation sessions that would seal the fate of their tentative truce. In a hastily prepared tent serving as the neutral meeting ground, diplomats from Earth mingled with Vroxian officers. Maps, data pads, and translation devices cluttered the central table, a stark symbol of the efforts to bridge two vastly different cultures and technologies. Ava stepped forward to meet Zarth as he entered, the desert heat doing little to dampen the gravity of the occasion. "Commander," she greeted, offering a nod that Zarth returned with a formal bow, a gesture of respect he had learned from observing human customs. "Let's begin," Zarth announced, his voice firm. "We are prepared to finalize the terms we've discussed, ensuring peace and the safety of Earth." The discussions were intense and detailed. Earth's representatives pressed for security assurances and strict monitoring of the Vroxian withdrawal. In exchange, they offered assistance in repairing the alien vessel with human technology, ensuring no further disruptions would occur. Zarth, understanding the precariousness of his position, conceded to most of Earth's demands. "We will provide you with all necessary schematics and flight plans. Our movements will be transparent," he pledged. Ava, scrutinizing the Vroxian commander, found herself grappling with a mix of skepticism and an emerging trust. "And what of future interactions? How do we prevent this from repeating?" Zarth paused, considering her question. "A non-aggression pact," he proposed, "effective immediately, and to be reviewed by a council from both our worlds annually." The negotiations stretched into the night, lit by the soft glow of technology and the harsher light of necessity. Every term was debated, every clause scrutinized. Finally, exhausted but resolute, both parties drafted a treaty that addressed the immediate concerns and laid a foundation for future diplomatic relations. As the documents were signed, the relief was palpable. Cameras flashed, capturing the historic moment, a testament to the possibility of peace born from the brink of destruction. "Today we began as adversaries," Zarth stated as he addressed those gathered. but we are committing to a path of peace and mutual respect. Ava stood beside him, her expression solemn but hopeful. Let this be a lesson in humility and courage for us all. We defended our home not to seek conflict, but to preserve our way of life. May we move forward with the same resolve towards peace. The agreement was transmitted globally, and as news of the treaty spread, celebrations erupted across Earth. Similarly, aboard the Vroxian ship, there was a sense of somber relief. The crew, once eager for conquest, now contemplated the lessons of Earth with a new respect for life and coexistence. In the following days, human engineers worked alongside Vroxian technicians to repair the alien ship. The cooperation was cautious yet efficient, each side keen to demonstrate good faith and foster a budding sense of camaraderie. Commander Zarth, watching Earth's landscape as his ship was slowly restored, felt a profound shift in his perspective. We came seeking to conquer, he mused to Jarn, who had been by his side throughout the ordeal. But we leave having gained something unexpected, insight and a potential ally. As the Vroxian ship finally prepared to leave Earth's atmosphere, both Zarth and Ava, standing on the ground below, exchanged salutes, a gesture of mutual respect and a promise. The Sahara, once a battlefield, had become a ground of reconciliation. The departure of the Vroxian fleet marked not the end of an invasion, but the beginning of a new relationship. Earth had defended its sovereignty and taught a formidable foe the value of respect and diplomacy. As both worlds looked to the stars, they saw not potential battlegrounds but opportunities for understanding and peace. As the Vroxian starship ascended into the twilight sky, leaving the Earth behind, the atmosphere among the crew was one of contemplation rather than the triumph they had envisioned when they first arrived. Commander Zarth, standing at the viewport, watched the planet shrink into the distance, its blue oceans and green lands etched into his memory as a lesson learned in humility and respect. Set course for Vrox, he ordered solemnly, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet of the command deck. Lieutenant Jarn at the navigation console input the coordinates, his movements precise, his mind busy with the events of the past weeks. We have much to consider, Zarth continued, turning to face his crew. Our mission was to conquer, yet we return changed, our views expanded. We must share what we've learned and reassess our approach to other civilizations. The journey back was uneventful in terms of interstellar travel, but internally the crew was abuzz with discussions about their experiences. Debates sprang up in the mess hall and corridors about ethics, strategy, and the very nature of their civilization's expansionist policies. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Sergeant Ava Martinez found herself a reluctant hero. Media outlets clamored for interviews, her image broadcast across the globe as a symbol of Earth's defense. Yet for Ava, the real victory was the peace that now prevailed, not the battles fought. She spent her days debriefing with military command, providing detailed reports of the engagements and the negotiation process. It's about understanding the opponent, Ava explained during one such meeting. We won not just through firepower, but by learning and adapting to the situation. Both Earth and Vrox faced internal challenges following the conflict. On Earth, governments reviewed their defense protocols, aware now more than ever of the vast universe beyond their own skies and the potential threats that loomed. Discussions about space exploration and alien diplomacy took on new urgency, reshaping policies and priorities. On Vrox, the return of the fleet was met with mixed reactions. The High Command greeted Commander Zarth and his crew with ceremonious respect, but it was clear that questions lingered about the mission's outcome. Zarth addressed the High Council, his report a candid reflection of the misjudgments and subsequent learnings. We faced an adversary worthy of respect, and in turn we must respect ourselves enough to learn from this, he declared. We must evolve from conquerors to collaborators if we are to thrive in this galaxy. His words resonated, sparking a wider debate among the Vroxian population. Educational programs were revised, military training included diplomacy, and a new Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs was established, focusing on peaceful exploration and cooperation. As the Vroxians embarked on this new chapter, they kept a vigilant eye on Earth, now considered not just a former battlefield, but a beacon of resilience and diplomacy. The two planets slowly began to exchange knowledge and resources, tentative at first, but gradually building confidence. For Commander Zarth, the journey home was not just a spatial voyage, but a profound personal odyssey. He found himself often at the ship's viewport, staring into the stars, pondering the delicate balance between strength and understanding. And on Earth, as Ava watched the night sky, the stars seemed to twinkle with new possibilities. The threat of invasion had receded, but the promise of the vast universe was more apparent than ever. She knew the world was forever changed, and she hoped it was for the better. As the Vroxian starship neared its home planet of Vrox, the mood among the crew was one of introspection. The expanse of space that separated Earth from Vrox had offered Commander Zarth and his crew ample time to reflect on their expedition, turning what was initially a mission of conquest into a journey of profound learning and change. "Prepare for docking," Zarth commanded as the familiar gray and rugged terrain of Vrox appeared in the viewport. The once imposing figure of Zarth had softened somewhat, the hard edges of conquest replaced by the broader lines of wisdom gained. The docking procedure was routine, yet the reception awaiting them was anything but. A large crowd had gathered at the spaceport, news of their unexpected return having spread across the planet. While some in the crowd were curious and hopeful, others bore signs of skepticism and dissent, reflecting the divided opinion on the mission's outcome. Zarth stepped off the ship with a dignified calm. "Today we return not with spoils of war, but with lessons of peace," he announced to the assembled media and onlookers, his voice carrying over the crowd. His speech was met with mixed reactions. While many younger Vroxians, eager for change, cheered, others, more traditional in their views, murmured in discontent. The mission had been costly, and the lack of tangible conquest was hard for some to accept. However, as Zarth continued outlining the agreements made with Earth and the benefits of diplomatic ties over military conquest, the tide of opinion began to shift. He spoke of technology exchanges, shared defense strategies, and, most importantly, the opening of interstellar trade routes that promised new growth and prosperity for Vrox. In the weeks that followed, Zarth faced both public inquiries and governmental debriefings. His honest assessments and thoughtful responses gradually won over many of his detractors. The military reviewed its doctrines in light of the mission, shifting focus from expansion by force to expansion through diplomacy and mutual benefit. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ava Martinez found herself thrust into the role of an advisor on extraterrestrial relations. Her first-hand experience with the Vroxians made her a valuable asset to the Earth governments as they navigated this new interstellar relationship. As Ava addressed various global councils, she emphasized the importance of preparedness and mutual respect in dealings with alien civilizations. "The universe is vast, with much to teach us," she often said. "Let's be ready to learn, not just to defend." Both planets gradually established a series of exchanges and visits. Vroxian delegations visited Earth, marveling at its blue seas and green landscapes, so different from their own arid world. Earth scientists traveled to Vrox, gaining insights into advanced technologies and bringing back knowledge that spurred innovations at home. Commander Zarth, now often called Ambassador Zarth, became a leading figure in Vrox's new Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs. His experiences on Earth had transformed him from a military commander into a diplomat, a role he grew into with surprising ease. On Earth, Ava continued to rise in her new field, her leadership and insights shaping Earth's approach to new frontiers in space. Her story inspired many, particularly young women, to pursue careers in science and diplomacy, reshaping Earth's future in space exploration and international relations.